This is another attempt at an Aurora Borealis oriented soap. I've already posted one video on that topic, and I've made several other batches in an attempt to get good Aurora look in the soap. I've never been really happy with them. They don't look very real. So this is another attempt. I'm going to do a drop swirl this time and use a very narrow wooden skewer to make the stripes. I'm hoping that will improve things. It probably still won't look very realistic as an aurora, but I'll try to get close. I'm using a mixture of lavender and lavandin essential oils for fragrance. Those are nice in that they don't discolor or accelerate. I'm also using some sodium lactate at about a teaspoon per pound of oil. I don't usually do that, but that should harden up this soap a bit. Most of this soap's batter is going to be black to represent the night sky, and so I'm using activated charcoal in that, 5 teaspoons. And I'm also going to use about a teaspoon and a half of titanium dioxide, which I'm going to whisk in dry to the batter, the black batter, after it's already thoroughly emulsified. The idea there being to leave little lumps of titanium dioxide rather than really blend it in well, and those should look like stars in the night sky. And then for the aurora, this is the order I'm going to put those stripes in. These are all Nurture Soap Company micas, and the yellow-green is going to be a thinner stripe than some of the others. In fact, I'll probably vary the width of the stripes. The hot pink, I think I'll probably make the widest, and then the deepest green next widest, and then the light green, yellow, and yellow, both pretty narrow stripes, and then perhaps a slightly bigger white stripe. And because my mold will make 3 rows of bars top to bottom, I'll probably repeat this cycle 3 times, trying to get a complete set of colors into each bar. We'll see what happens with that. Here's the recipe I'm using, calculated on soapcalc.com. I am using 20% coconut oil, 42% high oleic sunflower oil, 35% beef tallow, and 3% castor oil. So that should make a fairly soft soap, fairly slow moving, which is good for making a pattern in it as I'm doing. And I'm not using any water discount. It's quite a wet recipe. And I'm also moistening the mica colorants with some extra water, so it'll be quite wet. I have my oils just above room temperature. My lye is right at room temperature. I'm liking using the high oleic acid sunflower oil as a substitute for olive oil. It's a little cheaper. It's much clearer than most olive oils, so it doesn't give any color to the soap. And actually it has a higher oleic acid content and a lower linoleic acid content than olive oil does. So in that sense, the quality is quite good too. As usual, I will blend this to emulsion and then separate out my colors. You can see already that makes an almost white batter. Near trace. This is my charcoal for making black. I've already got it slurried in a bit of water, so I'll add a bit of soap batter and whisk those together and then pour that back. black batter. Whisk up my colors here. That a bit more from titanium dioxide instead. Just a barest hint of trace at the moment. So this is about a teaspoon and a half of just dry titanium dioxide. And whereas normally you don't want it to lump up, I do specifically want it to lump up this time to make stars in my night sky. So that's all I'm going to blend that. And I've done this before, and it's kind of invisible in the wet batter, but when it turns into soap and you slice it, you actually do see little dots of white. So hopefully that'll happen again this time. So I'm going to start out by pouring all of the black night sky batter into the mold. I don't know how well the camera shows it, but I can see the white starry specks of titanium dioxide in it already. Now, because this mold makes 3 rows of bars, I want to try to have an aurora pattern on the top row, the middle row, and the bottom row. That's going to be my goal here. Start out with the hot pink. Do a deep pour and then a shallow pour. For the pink, I don't mind it being a little wider stripe than that. More or less pure green is next. Well, that's interesting that it drags down the pink like that. I think I may like that. Second shade of green. Now that I see this mixed, it's not really one of the shades that you actually get in an aurora, but perhaps they'll blend well enough to look okay anyway. There's a little too much brown in this to be what an aurora would actually do. The yellowy green is next. of space in this bottom row, so I'm going to kind of blend that with the previous green. And then finally the white. Again, I don't mind if that is somewhat blended with the previous greens, because I really want to keep some black here to show some sky even on the surface of the soap. Now, to swirl this, I'm going to use a wooden skewer like you might make a kebab with. Make really close together stripes, perhaps 1/4 of an inch. And at this point, these are not going to look very realistically Aurora-like, because well, they're making those little chevron patterns, which an Aurora doesn't have. But I like the series of colors. I think that's just about right. See what happens if I double up on that and make them even finer stripes. Oh, that's very different looking. Gets rid of the chevrons anyway. Not sure I like it better, but now that I've started that, I'd better finish it. Once again, I'm not sure how much that really looks like an Aurora, but it's kind of cool looking soap. So, if I were doing this again, and I may, I would probably add a little more of the hot pink and less of the green. Although there are Auroras, of course, weak Auroras especially, that are almost entirely green. But I wanted some of that hot pink that a really bright Aurora often does produce. There is the freshly poured soap. Very different from the last Aurora soap I made, but it's still not an Aurora. Oh well. Since I made this in a wooden mold with freezer paper liner, I think I will C-pop it. That is, I'll put it in an oven at 170 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour or so to speed up the curing. This is the soap fresh out of the oven. It's still in gel state, so it's kind of the consistency of room temperature butter at the moment. The soap is now a day old, so I just unmolded it and cut it. My mold makes 9 big, slightly more than 8-ounce bars, so I've cut them in half. So these are, I have 18 bars here. I did trim off a bit of the top, which was kind of rough. So this is top side, and you can see the little stars of titanium dioxide showing through, especially in the black areas. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. I think it's a pretty good mix of colors. I wouldn't mind having more of the hot pink, but I don't. I kind of like the way the greens turned out. It's, as I said at the beginning, it's really not realistic for an actual aurora, but I think of all the attempts I've made, it may be the closest. And these are the sides of the bars. This mold doesn't use mold dividers, so these are actually cut surfaces. And sometimes if you hit one of those little pieces of titanium dioxide, it makes a little streak. So I guess I've got shooting stars on the sides of these. But again, I kind of like the color combination. And then these are the more narrow ends. Lots of stars in that one. And then just to show what the bottom side looks like, they're mostly black with a lot of titanium dioxide stars in them. I like that effect quite a lot. So I think it's a pretty soap.